believe. Bob? Continue. Okay.
It's working now.
Do you have a resolution, Mel? So we're looking to extend the winter agreement. Yeah, Councillor Dean and Councillor Dave. That's okay.
It is duly moved and seconded, but resolved that bylaw 2022-45, being a bylaw to authorize an extension to the equipment for winter operations agreement with B. Thomas, be read first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Randy?
Not so much a question, but a comment. I was out door knocking recently, and I ran across a citizen whose parents live in Noelville, and they had stated how actually satisfied they were last year with our snow removal in the city and how they're doing such a great job here municipally to control the road conditions. And then they were really impressed coming from Sudbury and how some of their roads they felt aren't being cleaned as efficiently or quickly as perhaps we're doing here. So the person gave a great shout out to our workers, and I'd like to do the same. I think our plow operators, municipally and contract driven, both do such a wonderful job, and I hope we don't need you much this year, but if we do, you are always out on time and do a great job. So thanks.
Any other comments or questions? No? Okay, all in favor? Nice to hear. 6.3, the chair's report, the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting held September 28, 2022. I believe, Bob, do you have a short?
I find it funny that you asked me to make it short.
Well, I don't mean that way, but.
Not that I want to make it short, but I'm going to go contrary to protocol. I'm going to go to the last item before our closure of that meeting. We had quorum. We had 100% attendance of our members. We had the mayor sit in as ex officio to that meeting. And I want to go to a comment that Mayor Pajot made just before the closure, and the chair echoed it, thanking our committee members for the last 4 years. That the environmental committee has made some hard, tough decisions in the last 4 years, and thanking those people was a must. And the mayor also re-asked them to re-put their names for the committee, and we got a good response. So now I'll go into the meat of the committee of the meeting. As you can see by the times, our meeting lasted 1 hour and 41 minutes. We had a good report from staff on different issues. It's like that. The first one was a report on our sewage system, and it was pretty well consensus that we would go ahead and recommend to council, the new council, that we accept this report and we support it. The second item was recycling, garbage. We had 4 different options. It opened our eyes on the cost that was involved if we wanted to stay status quo compared to other options we had. We had 4 options on the table. At the end of our discussions, we decided to recommend, and we were all in agreement. We're recommending 2 options, a short term and a long term. But with all these changes, one of the major points that was brought up was that whatever changes we make We can't just slam a hammer and say, this is it. We have to inform the public. We have to ask for feedback. We got to be really open and transparent about it. And I think that came out of our meeting. One other point we had on our agenda, I believe the members that were the council members that went to AMO saw a good presentation regarding food recycling or food, I forget the exact term of it. And we got the video presentation put on our agenda. Our committee is very interested in this and to look at it in the future. Right now, our staff and everything with changes on the table will be busy, but this food recycling and it's going to help the lifetime of our dump. So it's not just put on the back burner, but everyone's interested in it. We had a roundtable discussions. I believe you have the minutes, all good ideas. And I'm just gonna ask Councillor Dean, Councillor Dave, and Mayor Pajot that were there if they want to add anything. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to probably repeat a little about what you've been saying. The committee, I think, is quite in favor of us recommending to council, that's us now, that we carefully examine the possibilities of option 4, which is basically curbside pickup of garbage and recycling in its entirety. And I personally think that it's the only option that's going to really be available, workable to us when we look at what the cost would be as recommended or as stated by staff. If we don't use that option, if we try to continue with the system we have and have to renew all our bins and our trucks, et cetera, and then with a higher actual working cost to try to do it, it was a tremendous amount of money that they were talking about. And I suspect that they're probably right and maybe even on the low side. So council is going to have quite a bit to study with this. And I think it's been recommended, and it's probably true at this point. The most that we do with this council is say, well, we can hardly wait until the next council picks up this item and starts to examine it carefully. And that's where it goes from here. But believe me when I say we have a huge issue to settle with this thing. And you're right. And the mayor made this point very clearly that we have to involve the public. And so we'll look at ways of doing that, and that will not only involve them, but will help solve the problem. I think the public, first of all, has to know just the extent of what the problem is, and that's our job to make sure they understand that, and then we go from there. So I think I've said enough. Maybe Dave would like to, Councillor Veo might like to say something.
I think pretty much everything's been said. Maybe a little bit on we discussed a little bit on the lagoons. We were looking into a bacteria to help break down the waste in the lagoons. That's one thing that's being looked into. That's pretty much all I have to add. Everything else has been said.
I think Councillor Randy has a.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to my question is probably better directed to Kevin. We're a few months now into the curbside pickup program. I was just curious how the public was taking to it. I've heard lots of positivity, and I was just wondering if there's been any negativity towards the curbside. The only one I've heard is that a customer or a citizen wanted to get on the system and couldn't, that they're outside of the project area. And they were hoping we were going to expand quicker than later to curbside recycling for them as well. But I was just curious what the feedback's been to this point from the community on curbside. And I certainly support Amendment 4 from the sounds of it.
Oh yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. We've had a very positive reception to it for everybody who received the bins. And like you said, there are a lot of people that want to get on the system. The issue is, people are still going to the bins to throw out their garbage, so they do end up, using that for recycling as well. So we're getting about 40% participation rate, and in that 40%, we have 0% contamination. So it does work, and I hope it continues to grow as we go.
That's really excellent to hear, Kevin, that we've got 0% contamination on the 40% participation. Any idea on what we can do to boost the participation rate within that core group? Certainly it is working then, obviously. What can we do to entice the people that have bins that aren't using them, do you think?
Through you, Madam Chair. We did in the EAC committee, we brought forward a recommendation to limit all the bin sites to just waste, and then it'll be full curbside. So that would help a lot, and we would probably hopefully hit our 4% we're trying to look for, and going forward would be good to go.
And Madam Mayor, did you want to add?
Just a quick comment, because obviously this is going to the new council. So this council can't be tying the hands of the new council. I think you said it perfectly when you said we need to involve the community in these decisions. It's not something that any of us cannot do. And if the public has all the information, then the decision will become probably easier and more supportive, whatever the final decision is, because we can't speak on behalf of the new council. But I think it's really, really important that the public is involved in this, because if you don't have that, then you don't have buy-in on whatever program you're going to put forward. So, and the status quo can't stay the way it is, as it's obviously not working. And so some drastic changes have to be made. What they are at the end of the day will be decided by the new council.
And just one more comment, Madam Chair. I just want to state that it has been my pleasure to chair this committee for the last few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. On that note, 6.4 recreation community services, we don't have anything. 6.5 emergency protection services nil. 6.6 building and planning development is nil. We have correspondence 7.1 VAA French River Community Gardens. We have the community planting event is scheduled for next weekend, I believe. And they've asked for a donation from council in the amount of $500 to put shrubs, I guess, plants, fruit shrubs that are related to our area, which are asparagus plants, blueberry plants, raspberries, and strawberries. And so they've asked for a donation of $500 from the municipality to contribute. And they are looking to purchase those from the French River Garden and to go alongside our trail here in Noel. Last year, they did the Alvin Community Center, the outdoor there. So to add to that, Councillor Randy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question about the food forest in Alvin. What's the buy-in been like that? Now they've had a harvest season, obviously. Have the citizens actually come and collected the fruit, do they know about the project and what was the benefit for having that project put into place that we spent money on?
So first of all, it doesn't produce fruit the first year. Okay, so I can't tell you how much of the munchies people have been doing. I have to thank staff though, because the volunteers are supposed to take care of it, but the watering hasn't been the greatest. And as you know, the first year is the most important year. And so while the recreational staff is watering the beautiful flowers, and they just whip on that big hose there and water that. And that's been very helpful. I think all of it has taken except for one tree. So they're going to, when they come in next week to do this trail, they're going to check on the Albin one to see if the tree has any hope or a little CPR or if it's going to be replaced. Over here, what's interesting is thanks to l'Alliance, they're donating up to $5,000 for trees, beautiful trees, also to be planted, maples, silver maples, red maples, and a bunch of other ones there that they were recommended. They had a professor of biology do the trail a couple of times and make recommendation as to where they can be planted. And so they didn't have enough money for the berries and the stuff like that. So that's why they're coming to us. So it's a good project. It's a really good project.
Thank you, Mayor Pejol. Any more questions? I think it's really good too. Thank you to all the volunteers that, helped plant last year in Alvin and that will show up next weekend to help out here, and to Vela for a great project.
So if you want to volunteer, you can come at 10 o'clock in the morning. So they're going to start at 10. It'll probably take a couple hours, maybe 3 hours at most, depending on how much they get done. If it rains, then it's Sunday, rain or shine. And there was no shine in Albin last year, if I recall. And then they'll provide a little lunch. And the Edible Force group from Sudbury, who's assisting the group here, will be here to provide lunch for everybody and give the assistance and the knowledge. And then Dr. Beckett will also be here to assist in planting, which I think was kind of cool.
Nice. So I need a mover and a seconder for the donation? Councillor Dave and Councillor Randy.
It is duly moved and seconded. Be it resolved that council approves a monetary donation of $500 to the VAA French River Community Gardens Steering Committee for the Food Forest Initiative.
All in favor? Okay. I need a resolution to adopt the items in the consent agenda. Councillor Randy and Councillor Bob.
It is duly moved and seconded. Be resolved that council approves the items of the consent agenda under section 8.1.
Okay, we don't have any items from the separate consent agenda. No notice of motion. Announcement and inquiries. Do we want to start with Bob? Do you have any announcements for us?
Just a few. Unfortunately, the next meeting I will not be present. I will be out of town. Yes, there will be a Santa. There will be a Santa event December 17th. It is in the planning, that is a Saturday. It is in the planning process with Madam Chair, Renee, the Chatra family, and myself. We will, I think for now, we will keep council informed. And if Renee, you want to add anything on this, I'm sure you will. And for me, that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bob. Councillor Randy?
Yeah, thank you. Just the only thing that I have really on the that I want to speak about is the French River Lions Club is going to be selling Ultimate Dream Home tickets again this year. When we're in the house, we get a portion of those sales to come back to the community. I believe the 29th, perhaps, of October is when the house opens to the public. I should be there, I think, the second or first week of November, selling tickets every day. I've already volunteered my time. Last year I did almost 100 hours in the house, and it's really cool to be there and to help out. So support your local Lions and pick up an Ultimate Dream Home ticket if you have a chance.
Thank you, Randy. Mayor Pajot.
I just want to add to the Lions and to the Christmas party. The Lions also donated $500 to the Christmas children's party. Yes, and they've also volunteered to come and assist on the day to serve the hot dogs and stuff like that. So the Lions used to be a big part of that Christmas party. So it's nice to have the community back together again. And I think that's all. The food bank's not open this week. I think that's it. Oh, no, one more thing. The seniors luncheon in Wellville started again today. So it was nice to see the seniors from the Wellville gather again. And the paramedic was there to do the blood pressure, oxygen levels for them. And it's a great program for them. So it was lovely to see people again.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
I don't really have anything in particular to say. I guess I'd just like to reiterate what Bob said earlier about the participation of, I call them civilians, non-council members on our committees. I think it's great to see, and I'm not familiar with the other committees, but certainly the environmental committee, we get participation from those folks. And I think it's important that we do, because it's a real good way for some of the issues that we have to deal with, it can get back to the public. Because I'm assuming and think it's probably true that as those folks discuss those issues with friends, neighbors, and family, that the word gets out more about what we're trying to accomplish. So it's very worthwhile when we've got real participating members. So I'll just leave it with that. I think it's great that we have those people that participate like that.
Thank you. Councillor Dave.
I don't have any announcements. Thanks.
The audience, are you guys have any comments for us, or are you guys, So the question was, how did they select the trees for the planting? I'm not part of that committee. It's VAA, and Giselle can answer that question.
Yeah, so they what they did is they contacted university biologists at Laurentian who came and walked the trail to see what kind of fruit trees. There will be a bit of apple and pears that should succeed in growing in our area. The rest will be maples, and oaks, red oaks, and so what he does is he goes through the trail to see where and they can be planted, what kind of trees will survive, and then makes a recommendation to the edible forest group in Sudbury, which is guiding the VAA here in French River for their recommendations. And so they're implementing his recommendation. Well, the idea is the first year they'll need some tending, and they have a group of volunteers. I think the group of the Noelville group is about 6 or 7 people. So they'll tend, they'll go check to make sure that they're taking, check to see whether or not they need the water, depending how much rain we get and all that stuff. And then the idea is sustainability, right? So they're supposed to be self-sustaining eventually. So blueberries and raspberries, they should not need much tending, but the group of volunteers will remain just to make sure. And if they need anything, then the recommendation that the edible forest group is amazing, because they've done in Sudbury 4 or 5 of them, and quite successfully. So. Yeah.
Regarding the recycling, I have a question, and that is 40% apparently are using it. And there's 100% no contamination in that which is being collected. Is the 40%, like, do they demarcate whether it's in the rural area or in the area of Noelville and Albin where it's more residential? Because I'm not sure how much it's being used in the rural area. My preference is to go to the bins. And I'm used to driving, so I like to go when I feel like doing, dumping the garbage. I do find though that I always have to check to see when the bins are open in Noelville. Sometimes I've had garbage in my van for a couple of days because it was closed. So that's my question. Is there a difference between the residential and the rural? Thank you.
Kevin, if you are still on and don't mind answering that question.
For sure, through you, Madam Chair. The stat is kind of mixed up. It is a little bit higher in town centers, but it's pretty equal across the board. I would say 60, 40, 65, 30. It's not terribly different.
Councillor Randy.
So as the past chair of the environmental committee, I can go ahead and answer this. So it's a pilot project at this point, and it's mostly in the urban centers. There is very little rural component to this. It's more or less based Noelville, Albin at this point. So it hasn't been expanded fully into those rural areas where there's a lot of rural uptake. So that delineates where it's mostly urban based. But as we discussed, the system of the waste management here has to make a transition at some point to something more manageable. And that's why we're looking at a future with the future council making decisions on where we're going to go with the system.
Councillor Dave would like to say something.
Also, the recycling bins, like the big bins that you go to and dump yourself, those are 40% contamination rate, as opposed to 0% contamination. And by 2025, we have to be lower than 4%. So that's why we kind of have to go to curbside recycling for that reason, or have it. There's other ways, but expensive ways.
Okay, thank you. For myself, I think our next term, we're going to have a lot of big issues on the table for a new council to deal with. So we'll save those for new council. Even though most of us are still staying here, at least it'll give us time to read up on some of the materials and look at other things. Also, just want to say, like Bob said, thanks to all our members that have participated on the 4 different advisory committee groups. It's been great to have their participation and help, and the hours they've dedicated. So, and the input from the public's been nice. Also want to say the Rapids won 2 games in a row, so they're on a good spurt. They play this Sunday at 4 o'clock at the Noelville Arena. Also, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And Christmas parade is, we are working on it. A lot of good volunteers. We've had a few, the case and a few other businesses making donations towards for gifts for the kids this year and the Lions. And there's a few floats already on board. They will be reaching out to all the other businesses in the area. So we look forward to planning that. And the Sudbury Parade is back on too this year. They announced it November 19th, I believe they said. So that's nice. Ours is December 17th. So the Saturday before Christmas, exactly 1 week to Christmas Eve. So Santa should be really busy at that time of the year, but he is going to stop in and have a quick visit with the kids out here. So they'll be excited. So on that note, I think we need a resolution. Oh, Counselor Dean, Counselor Randy.
Nope, close. I'm not quite the senior member of council. No, just a quick, while we're closing up here, we've got a member of the audience here today, Dennis Doe. It was his birthday this week, and I just wanted to wish him a happy birthday on behalf of council. It was nice to see Denny come back at the end because he hasn't been here for a little while.
Thank you. So we need a mover and a seconder for the confirmation bylaw. Counselor Randy and Counselor Dave. Boy, I'm getting Alzheimer's.
It is duly moved and seconded, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-46, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at a meeting held October 5th, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
All in favor? And we have a resolution to adjourn. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Counselor Bob and Counselor Dean. And thank you very much for participating. Have a good night.
We didn't vote on that last one. You asked for movers, but you didn't ask.
Oh, all in favor? Okay, everybody's in favor. Have a good evening.